Hello and welcome to Deception Diaries. Thanks for joining us today. We've got a brand new story to share with you, so let's begin. Marriage is a contract written in invisible ink. The terms change with time, with circumstance, with the weather of human emotion. What we sign up for on that altar is rarely what we end up living through. I thought I understood this complexity when I said I do. I was wrong. My name is David, just a regular guy with a mortgage, a retirement plan, and what I thought was a rock-solid marriage. 7 years ago, Sarah walked down the aisle toward me in a dress that made her look like something from a dream. Her smile could have lit up the darkest corners of the universe. I remember thinking I was the luckiest man alive. Those first years were beautiful. We traveled when we could afford it. We painted walls in our first home at midnight, laughing when we got more paint on each other than on the drywall. We made love like we were inventing it. We created rituals that became the architecture of our shared life. When our son Jamie was born, I witnessed Sarah transform into a mother with a grace that left me in awe. I worked harder, earned promotions, took on extra projects. Someone needed to provide the foundation for our family's future, and I wore that responsibility like a badge of honor. I never complained about the long hours, about missing bedtimes or weekend outings, about the weight that seemed to settle permanently across my shoulders. This was love in action, sacrifice without resentment. The changes came so gradually I almost didn't notice them. Sarah stopped meeting my eyes when we spoke. Conversations became transactional, logistical. Who's picking up Jamie? Did you pay the electric bill? When are you coming home? Her phone became an extension of her hand. Password protected. Screen always tilted away from me. She began taking calls in the bathroom, the volume of the shower mysteriously increasing. I told myself this was normal. Marriage ebbs and flows. We were busy parents juggling careers and a child. Of course, there would be distance sometimes. When I found an unfamiliar cologne clinging to her scarves, I convinced myself it was from a coworker's hug. When she started going out 3 nights a week for book club, I nodded and smiled. When she came home with her hair different than when she left, lips slightly swollen, I swallowed my questions like bitter medicine. I was a fool wearing blinders I strapped on myself. The business trip to Tokyo was supposed to be my big break. 3 weeks abroad, finalizing a merger that would set our family up financially for years. Sarah seemed almost relieved when I told her about it. "You deserve this opportunity," she said, not quite meeting my gaze. I called home every night for the first week. Jamie's voice was the fuel that kept me going through 18-hour workdays. Sarah's responses grew shorter, more distracted. By the second week, she stopped answering altogether. "She's probably just busy with Jamie," my colleague said when he noticed my furrowed brow after another unanswered call. I nodded, but something cold and heavy settled in my stomach. The email arrived on day 16 of my trip. A message from my lawyer, not Sarah, not even her attorney, but my lawyer, with divorce papers attached. The subject line read, "Urgent, divorce filing service, acknowledgement required." I stared at my screen, the Tokyo skyline blurring behind my hotel window as my world collapsed in on itself. My fingers trembled as I opened the attachment. Standard language, irreconcilable differences, joint custody with primary physical residence with Sarah, division of assets, her signature already in place, a casual slash of ink that severed 7 years of marriage. I called her once, twice, 20 times, straight to voicemail. I called our neighbor, the only person I could think of who might know something. "David," she whispered, voice tense with discomfort. "There's a man staying at your house. Has been since you left." I didn't know what to say. The merger forgotten, I booked the next flight home. 30 hours of travel with nothing but rage and betrayal for company. I didn't cry. I didn't break anything. I sat perfectly still, a volcano disguised as a mountain. I stepped through our front door at 2 a.m. The house was dark, silent, different somehow. I moved through rooms that no longer felt like mine, cataloging changes. Men's shoes by the door, empty beer bottles on the counter, a jacket too large for my frame draped across my favorite chair. And our photographs, removed from frames, replaced with new ones, Sarah with a man I didn't recognize, Jamie on this stranger's shoulders at what looked like a baseball game. I was being erased while still alive. I slept in the guest room, if you can call staring at the ceiling until dawn sleeping, At 7 a.m., I heard Jamie's familiar morning babble followed by heavy footsteps that weren't mine. "Daddy's home!" Jamie's voice rang out as he burst into my room, confusion and joy battling across his small face. I held him so tight he squealed. Sarah appeared in the doorway, face drained of color. Behind her stood a tall man with a sleeve of tattoos and the confident posture of someone who'd been playing house in my absence. "You're supposed to be in Tokyo," she said, as if my greatest crime was breaking my travel itinerary. "And you're supposed to be my wife," I replied, my voice eerily calm. Yet here we are. Jamie looked between us, sensing the tension. The stranger, I later learned his name was Kevin, took a step backward, suddenly very interested in the hallway carpet pattern. "We need to talk," Sarah hissed, eyes darting toward Jamie. "Later." "No," I said, standing. "Now. Kevin, is it?" "You can leave." "I don't think," he started. "This isn't your house. It's not your child. And whatever you think this is, it's over. Get out." He looked at Sarah, who nodded, almost imperceptibly. The front door clicked shut moments later. "Jamie, buddy, can you go play in your room for a few minutes? Dad and Mom need to talk," I said, forcing warmth into my voice that I didn't feel. When we were alone, the gloves came off. "I want to know why I'm getting served divorce papers by email in another country," I said. "I want to know why there's another man sleeping in my bed. I want to know what kind of person does this to someone they promised to love forever." "You checked out of this marriage years ago," she snapped. "You're never here. When you are, you're distracted. Kevin actually sees me, listens to me. I've been working to give us everything we talked about. The house, the college fund for Jamie, the vacations. Did you think that happens by magic?" She laughed, a hollow sound that scraped against my eardrums. "We don't need things, David. We needed you. Present, engaged. I got tired of competing with your ambition. So your solution was to cheat? To ambush me with divorce papers while I'm literally on the other side of the world?" She looked away. "I didn't want a scene. I thought it would be easier this way." "Easier for who, Sarah?" "Certainly not for me, not for Jamie." The conversation spiraled from there. Accusations. Revelations. Apparently, this affair had been going on for 8 months. Kevin was a personal trainer at her gym. They'd been in love for 6 months. She convinced herself I wouldn't care enough to fight for our marriage. She was wrong. 2 days later, the real chaos began. I hadn't signed the papers. Instead, I consulted with my attorney and filed for primary custody of Jamie, citing moral character concerns and abandonment of marital responsibilities. Sarah didn't see it coming. She'd assumed I'd roll over, accept Kevin as Jamie's new father figure, and fade quietly into every other weekend dad status. When the court officers arrived with temporary custody papers pending our hearing, Sarah's world imploded. I wasn't home, deliberately so. My mother was there to receive Jamie and take him to her house as outlined in the court order. Sarah called me, hysterical. "They took him. They just took our son. How could you do this?" "How could I? That's rich coming from the woman who invited another man into our home while I was building our future. This isn't about us. This is about Jamie." "Exactly," I said. "It's about Jamie growing up with stability and values, not watching his mother cheat and lie." Her voice cracked. "Please, David, I made a mistake, a terrible mistake, but don't use our son to punish me." That was the first genuine emotion I'd heard from her in months. Not manipulative, not calculated, just raw fear and regret. I didn't relent immediately. Jamie stayed with my mother for 3 days while Sarah and I negotiated through our attorneys. The divorce was happening, some bridges can't be unburned, but we established boundaries. Kevin was out of the picture, a condition I insisted on before allowing Jamie to return home. Sarah agreed to family counseling. We would share custody while living separately, with Jamie's well-being as our North Star. When I dropped Jamie off after those 3 days, Sarah had changed. The defiant woman who had served me divorce papers was gone. In her place stood someone humbled by consequences. "I never thought about what would happen," she admitted as Jamie played in his room. "I was so focused on what I wasn't getting that I didn't see what I was throwing away." "That's the problem with betrayal," I told her. "You're so busy justifying it that you never consider the aftermath. Actions have consequences, Sarah. Always." My colleague Tom summed it up perfectly over beers a month later. "She wanted to rewrite the story where you were the villain who drove her to cheat, but you flipped the script." The divorce finalized 6 months later. We sold the house, too many ghosts. I bought a smaller place closer to Jamie's school. Sarah moved to an apartment across town. The greatest revelation came not in the dramatic moments, but in the quiet aftermath. Sitting alone in my new home, I realized 4 essential truths. First, you can't make someone value loyalty. It's either in their character or it's not. Second, working hard for your family is noble, but not at the expense of being present. Balance isn't just a buzzword, it's survival. Third, your response to betrayal defines you more than the betrayal itself. Choose dignity over destruction. Finally, forgiveness isn't about absolution for the other person. It's permission for yourself to heal without carrying their baggage. I don't hate Sarah anymore. That would require energy I'd rather invest elsewhere. We co-parent civilly. Jamie is adjusting well, though he still asks difficult questions that break my heart anew. Sometimes I wonder if I could have prevented this by working less, talking more, seeing the signs earlier, but you can't build a fortress around someone determined to escape. I'm dating again, cautiously. Trust comes harder now, like a muscle that's been torn and healed imperfectly. But I'm not cynical, just wiser, more attentive to red flags, more protective of my peace. What would you do if betrayal knocked on your door? Would you crumble or rise? Would you seek vengeance or growth? How do you rebuild trust when your foundation has been shattered? Let me know in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please share it with someone who might need to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe to Deception Diaries for more stories of betrayal, survival, and the complicated business of being human.